Today, let's look at 3 important people that created and changed, revolutionized the world of tiki cocktails. Welcome to Common Man Cocktails. I'm Derek Schomer, and in this series what I want to do is prepare you for Tiki Month. For most of April, we're going to be doing tiki cocktails, and tiki cocktails can be quite intimidating, so I want to try to remove some of that intimidation for you. A lot of the intimidation from tiki cocktails comes from the lack of understanding, so if we educate you, give you some of the backstory, give you the history, give you the ingredients, you might be a little bit more prepared for what we're about to get into. So we're going to do a 3-video series all preparing you for tiki. Today we're going to talk about 3 of the key people in the tiki revolution, the pop culture that created and has grown tiki over the last, 50 plus, 60, 70 years, 80 years. It's been a while now. And of course, if this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe to Common Man Cocktails for all the education and the cocktails that you're going to be getting. Also, don't forget to like this video, because that's kind of important for me. So who are these 3 key individuals? Donn The Beachcomber, Trader Vic, Mariano Licudine. I think I'm saying that right. So a little bit on Donn Beach. His real name is Ernest Beaumont Gantt. He opened a bar in 1933, right after prohibition was repealed, if I get that right. He called it Donn The Beachcombers, and it was a small bar on the corner of a hotel. Basically, he just mixed up a bunch of potent rum cocktails, things that kind of inspired him. And then 3 years later, him and his girlfriend had enough money to start their own little bar that wasn't attached to a hotel. And he called that one Donn The Beachcomber. He was so into it, he eventually changed his name to match Donn The Beachcomber. So the first thing he did is he filled his bar with bamboo bar stools, fishnets, umbrellas, and anything he kind of found in his travels around the Polynesian islands. I mean, there was really no place he went to that had all of this stuff, like within a restaurant or a home or anything, or a hotel, but it was kind of a collection of things that he saw during his travels. And since it was in like the Hollywood, LA area where there are a lot more stars, eventually as your restaurant grows in popularity, sometimes you can attract famous guests. And famous guests bring more famous guests. And all of a sudden, a culture is born. And from what I understand, he also installed faucets above some of the windows, and it made it look like it was raining, thus keeping people in the bar longer, because nobody wants to go out. Maybe you'll have one more drink since it's raining outside. We might as well just hang out here. So literally, he was building a faux Polynesian style. He had some Cantonese food. He had all the kind of the things you'd see from what we would now traditionally call a Chinese food restaurant, kind of inspired by a lot of his work, to keep people there. He's very good at business. He had the theme. He had the vacation. Remove your mind from the stresses of reality. Come on in and have a couple potent rum drinks. So he learned how to keep his customers there longer. He also traveled around the Caribbean. He found a lot of these cool recipes, daiquiris and stuff like that, that involved rum and different types of spices and sugars. So he brought a lot of that knowledge back, and then he just went crazy. He built cocktails that nobody had ever seen before. Crazy names, dangerously potent, and things that you just had to tell your friends about. Tiki cocktails we remember that Donn Beach really inspired are Navy Grog, Tahitian Rum Punch, Cobra's Fang, 3 Dots and a Dash, and of course, the one that really set his name in stone was the zombie. Go to any American Chinese food restaurant and you will find some derivative of a zombie on their menu. There's no doubt Donn Beach started the tiki culture from nothing. The torches, the nets, the nautical theme. But then Trader Vic came along and took it to a brand new height, which leads us into Trader Vic Bergeron. He took what he saw happening at Donn Beach, and I believe even got kicked out a few times, and then just kind of amped it up a little bit. Okay, he amped it up a lot of bit. He started a restaurant called Hinky Dinks, later called Trader Vic's, and he thought he could take what Donn Beach was doing, but do it better. Which is what's so great about competition, is being able to take something that you've kind of maybe stolen a little bit, the idea that inspired you, and build upon it and make something grand. Apparently one of his chefs even went as far as to have invented the first crab rangoon. So again, tiki culture, Polynesian style food, and the whole tiki motif around it. Maybe some Easter Island statues or whatever kind of gave you that vibe of being on the island. Ironically, if you've ever been to some Polynesian islands, none of this stuff actually exists as a thing. The culture wasn't taken from the islands and brought to California and Chicago and Florida. It was invented here and then pushed there because people wanted that sense of adventure and that sense of getting away from reality. And of course, if you watched our video all about some of the founders of the cocktail creation, industry revolution, you'll know that Trader Vic got its name for trading for some of these nautical themed items for their drinks and their food. So if you showed up at Trader Vic's back in the day and you had, I don't know, a crab basket or a crab trap or a cool anchor thing or whatever, you could trade that over so he could put it into his restaurant chains and get a drink for it. Of course, he started with one restaurant and it blew up. Just like Donn Beach, Donn created a restaurant chain that blew up. Trader Vic just made it better. Trader Vic's themed restaurant is what kind of has been the cornerstone of themed restaurants from Disney, Rainforest Cafe. These guys have all learned the tricks of the trade by watching somebody take it from nothing and invent it out of nothing and build a huge industry from it. So what is it that Trader Vic is really best known for? Dr. Funk Cocktail, El Diablo, supposedly, Scorpion, Fog Cutter, and of course, the Trader Vic Mai Tai. There's a big argument about who created the Mai Tai, Donn Beach or Trader Vic. We're not gonna worry about that right now. What I can tell you is that Trader Vic Mai Tai is freaking fantastic. Go make one. Here's a video. So who's Licudine, this Mariano Licudine? He was the #2 barman at Donn Beachcombers. He was born in the Philippines. He has 14 siblings. And he pretty much just did odd jobs around California until he ended up coming upon Donn Beach, and he did an odd job there. He just started tending bar. 16 years later, he was their #2 man. But one of the problems was Donn Beach wanted his recipes done his way. They had to look his way, they had to taste his way, with the ingredients done his way, prepared his way. No deviation. It was an aggressive method, but it got the job done. But that also meant that your #2 barman never had a chance to kind of excel and expand on his own creations. But then, the Thornton brothers came along. They finally found a place that they were going to create their own tiki bar at a young age, graduating college, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to build this nice A-frame and this garden, and they built a little restaurant, big restaurant, called the Mai Tai. Then they went over to Donn Beach's restaurant establishment and picked up their #2 bartender and their #2 chef while they were at it. Don't take your #1. These guys are at the top. You take the guys that are itching to get to #1. You make them #1 in your establishment, and that's what they did. The Mai Tai in Florida, which is still there today, built a recipe menu of 48 cocktails, all tiki cocktails, designed by Mariano. So what he did is he took many of Donn Beach's recipes and renamed them and put them into his restaurant. So what that means to you, as a cocktail creator, is you're going to find that there are recipe variations that are very close together that have very similar names. Donn Beach's Pearl Diver becomes the Deep Sea Diver. Cobra's Fang becomes the Cobra's Kiss. And then, to tweak them a little bit to your taste and your palate and what you want on your menu. Then he went and invented a bunch of other cocktails because while he was at Donn Beach's, he's playing around and prototyping things that he can never actually put on the menu. But now that you have your own establishment, you've got free reign. If you want to build a cocktail menu that fits your style, go right ahead, because you're now the #1 man. In those 16 years he was at Donn Beach's in the kitchen, nobody knew who he was. The Thornton brothers, however, made him a celebrity. You could find photos of him along with famous people. You could find him in magazine publications. They made sure to get the word out who this guy was and where he was working. Some of his contributions in influence at the Mai Tai on their menus include things like the Barrel O' Rum, which you're going to see in one of our upcoming episodes, Oh So Deadly, the Cobra's Kiss, Tahitian Breeze, and tons of other ones. So when you go there and you get the Barrel O' Rum, you get it in a nice rum barrel, a tiki mug that you get to take home after you've conquered that drink. And of course, the gift shop is full of tiki mugs. You can actually still go there today. So speaking a little bit about these tiki mugs, when you see us preparing our tiki cocktails for Tiki Month, what you're going to notice is very few usages of a tiki mug. And one of the reasons is the tiki mug wasn't a thing. You wouldn't see them at Donn Beach's bars. You wouldn't see them at Trader Vic. Most of these mugs didn't arrive until at least the 60s. But Donn Beach and Trader Vic, we're talking 30s and 40s. Although in 1959 there was a photo, I think it was from Trader Vic's, of a gentleman drinking from a bowl that had a tiki motif to it. But it was just that one specific bowl recipe that they were serving. Not much unlike the rum barrel that happened years later. Or the Mr. Bali Hai, which was served in a Mr. Bali Hai mug at the Bali Hai, which I believe was someplace in California, maybe San Diego area. So those tiki mugs, which are now actually considered vintage and go for a lot of money on eBay, were mugs that were served at some of the later 60s and 70s and 80s establishments that were specific for a drink. Today, a lot of those mugs have been reproduced, remolded, remade, and reshipped to a lot of Polynesian restaurants and American Chinese restaurants around the United States. So it's not unusual to find a tiki mug at a restaurant today. But back in the day, not only was it rare, but it was very hyper-specific to a cocktail to a specific restaurant. Ironically, one of the weird things is Donn Beachcomber, outside of all the recipes and creations that he's given to the tiki culture, most of his restaurants and his legacy are gone. Trader Vic is still kind of out there a little bit, but out of all of them, Mai Kai is really the biggest, I think, most respected and well-known tiki establishment that's generating old school tiki drinks. Of course, if you go to Smuggler's Cove, Lost Lake, a lot of these folks like Martin Kate who have been inspired when they were younger by a lot of these places like the Mai Kai and Bali Hai. They're the next generation that's carrying this legacy forward. But I think Mariano Licudine is probably the best celebrity tiki creator that there is. Although for me, I found that I found Donn Beach and Trader Vic and some of the battles and the history behind them the most intriguing. Other people you want to keep on your radar that, like I said, Martin Kate, if you want to get, there's a few books, if you want to really get into tiki, you want to be able to conquer just tiki and become, you can even open a bar with this stuff. Smuggler's Cove book. This covers a lot of the history of some of the people we've talked about, plus the history of some tiki, plus tiki recipes, tiki syrups, and the back of the book is all tiki recipes modified from some of the originals or kind of riffs off the originals that you could find served at Smuggler's Cove. If you're looking for a book that kind of covers a lot of those historic tiki and a lot of the depth that I've gone into here, only even a deeper dive, you want to pick up Jeff Barry's remixed book, which is actually 2 books in one, Grog Log and Intoxica. This covers a crap load of tiki recipes. If you have this, you can have tiki parties for years before you're going to need any more recipes. Sippin' Safari by Jeff Barry is another good book, especially if you want to check the back of the book, which goes through all of Licudine's history in more detail than what I've given it here. You can also check out Jeff Barry's Potion of the Caribbean if you want to understand more of the legacy of rum and how that plays into how tiki was basically born from the islands. And it has nothing to do with the Polynesian islands. It's all the Caribbean. And I think he's got a pile of other books. If you just cover these 2 guys, you've got it all. Well, outside of the book In a Bottle of Rum, which is the history of rum in America and around this region, you can check out Wayne Curtis's book for that. That's more rum specific if you're into rum. Next time we're going to talk about rum styles and how they contribute to tiki and what you need to buy and what you can substitute and what you need to know. For now, sidebar, more videos. Down below you can check out our bartender starter kit at awesomedrinks.com. Yeah, I own the store. If you want to support us, that's where you buy your gear. We're teaching you how to drink.